This is our little recording studio where we make, actually make music in here these days. It's not like the old days with the big tape recorders and the giant studios like we worked at RCA when we were doing the Monkees. Tommy and I said, let's walk down to the park. Tommy started snapping his fingers to the beat of our walking pace. And with his snaps, I started doing and began to sing, here we come walking down the street. Of course, that's what we were doing at the time, is walking down the street. Here we come walking down the street. We get the funniest looks from everyone we meet.
Hey, we're the Monkees, and people say we monkey around, but we're too busy singing to put anybody down.
In 1967, 4 unknown actors in a kids' TV show became the biggest pop band in the world. In America, they outsold Elvis and the Beatles combined. They were the Monkees.
Hey, we're the Monkees, and people say we're monkeys.
I remember the first day showing up, and it was, oh, hi, Mike. You remember Mike? Oh, yeah, I'm from the audition. Oh, hi. David, Mickey, Peter, hi, nice to meet you. You guys are the Monkees.
But the Monkees were not a real band. They were a man-made, money-making machine driven by ego and ambition. A machine that would ultimately crash and burn.
And people say we monkey around.
Was I a hired hand, or was I an integral part of the action? If I was integral, let me play. If I was a hired hand, stop making nicey nice to me.
They smiled at us and they told us how great we were, and behind our backs they said any 4 guys could have done this.
They were full of themselves. They were TV stars, and they felt they didn't need me anymore, and they figured they had talent, which they really didn't have.
Hey, we're the Monkees.
This is the inside story of the rise and fall of pop music's first manufactured band.
To put anybody down.
In 1965, Beatlemania swept across America, leaving behind a turned-on teenage audience hungry for more of the band's heady mix of rock and roll, mop tops, and quirky humor. This was a new generation with something to say and money to spend. In Hollywood, 2 hotshot television producers, Bob Rafelson and Bert Schneider, had a plan to cash in on the pop phenomenon. The scheme involved creating a fictional band, one with its own weekly TV show. Soon, Rafelson began scouring California for young wannabes.
I put an ad in the paper, and it said something like, must come down for interview, meaning if you were on drugs, you had to be straight.
Rafelson held open auditions at Columbia Studios, determined to find 4 zany boys who could fit the mold of the Beatles and tap into their ready-made market.
437 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 17-year-olds lined up all along this wall waiting to get into an office. A lot of guys with instruments and a lot of guys swacked out of their minds. And then they would come in here.
The first Monkee to be cast was a former child actor and jockey from Manchester.
Wow, this must be my room. This is the Davy Jones Band. I was 19, and I'd signed a contract with Columbia Pictures. I was a contract player. I went through the process of auditions and the rest of it, but I'd understood I was in the show regardless.
Interviews are spontaneous and unrehearsed.
What do you want me to do?
Sing. Dance, one of your little quick things.
I thought David Jones was handsome. I thought he was uncommonly small. I thought he had had an interesting career already, and he had a lovely voice.
Really? How fine is that? Let me see what the girls are doing. I'll be right back.
Another child actor pushed his way to the front of the queue. Mickey Dolenz was a Los Angeles boy and no stranger to Hollywood auditions.
These are going on. Well, I was a working actor at the time in Los Angeles, and I'd gone out for auditions all my life. I mean, I was a child actor. Come in.
Mickey I liked for his phenomenal energy. He had a funny face. He liked using and wearing his funny face. And he had not only an interesting singing voice that I thought would do well on records, but he had a very good speaking voice.
I was a screaming rock and roller, which is probably why I ended up singing a lot of the stuff, because I was the only one that could go, wah! You know, like Little Richard. Okay, ready to go.
Folk singer Peter Tork was working as a dishwasher in LA when he got the call to go to the auditions.
They took me into Bert Schneider's office, and he offered me a cigarette, and I said, I don't smoke those. And he said, well, you can't be stoned on the set. And I went, okay.
Peter Tork had, for me, a very beguiling face, the kind of face that I could equate in my mind's eye with Harpo Marx.
Finally, Mike Nesmith arrived on set. A young and ambitious country singer whose wealthy mother had invented Tipp-Ex, the Texan played it cool and was quick to make a strong impression.
My name is Michael Black.
Mike showed leadership right from the outset. His humor was much drier.
Do you think you're a goof?
Do you?
No.
My feeling was he would lend a kind of calming presence to the unruliness of the others.
What is that? What do you want me to be? Strong and silent?
Yeah, be strong and silent.
That turned out to be the full complement, and we never had any doubts about the four.
From the outside, casting 4 industry nobodies seemed like a huge gamble, but the producers believed they were onto a winning formula.
They came up with, basically 4 people that matched the temperaments of the Beatles. So you had the intellectual, nerdy element of John Lennon was Michael Nesmith. And you had the cute, cuddly Ringo you might think of as Mickey Dolenz. And then you think of George Harrison, the more quiet, mystical one would have been Peter Tork. And who are we missing? We're missing Paul McCartney. Well, that would be Davy Jones.
The Monkees evolved out of everything that came before, and John Lennon said, the Monkees are nothing like the Beatles, they're more like the Marx Brothers, and he was talking in a Birmingham accent at the time, so...
Monkees, you say? Yes. There is something primitive about them, Vanessa. Hey, give me a G.
The Monkees were seemingly the complete manufactured band, but there was one major ingredient missing from the perfect pop formula. They had no songs.
They came to me as the man who knew what to do with the music, and I said to people, I believe I'll outsell the Beatles.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, go!
Having been cast for their looks and characters, little importance had been attached to the musical talent of the individual Monkees. Instead, it was the role of New York music maestro Don Kirshner to supply the hits.
Donnie was riding a peak of being aware of what the musical taste of the day was. At that time, he really was the man with the golden ear.
Kirshner was known in the industry as a hit maker, although he had very little to do with the music. But what he was kind of like your godfather, in a sense.
Initially, the Monkees had been promised they could record their own music, but Don Kirshner had other plans.
Well, when I walked in, Mickey Dolenz wasn't even a drummer. Davy, other than playing maracas, Peter Tork was a semi-ordinary guitar player with no voice to speak of, and Mike Nesmith was a country singer. I don't know who would want those elements when he walks into the studio. That was frightening to me.
Who's here? The Monkees. Yeah. Now, the last group of the contest, the Monkees!
Don Kirshner had no intention of letting the Monkees become a real band. In the studio, he allowed them to add only the vocals to tracks he'd already recorded with his team of hit writers and musicians.
Quickly, it became evident that we weren't going to have anything to do with the music, except singing, of course. We did all the singing. Peter tells the story of going into one of the early sessions with his bass guitar, and they said, "What are you doing here?"
Boyce and Hart invited me to the studio, and I came with my guitar. And they said, "Peter, this is the track. We're done." "Well, but I've got this great idea." "Peter, this is the track. We're done. We just invited you as a courtesy." Whoa.
Before the TV show hit the air, Don Kirshner needed to launch the Monkees with a big hit single. He turned to ace writers Bobby Hart and Tommy Boyce, whose inspiration once again came from the original Fab Four.
I heard just the tail end of Paperback Writer, and it was just the fade out. And I was going, "Paperback Writer." And I thought the guy was saying, I thought McCartney or whoever was singing was saying, "Take the last train." I thought that's what I heard in my mind, you know. And ended up with a kind of a Beatlesque. We told Louis Sheldon, "Hey, play me something like Day Tripper." And he said, "How about this?" Dun, 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 dun. So he had it right in his head, you know.
Take the last train to Clarksville and I'll meet you at the station. You can be here by 4:30, 'cause I've made your reservation. Don't be slow. No, no, no. No, no, no. 'Cause I'm leaving in the morning and I must see you again.
We also snuck in a little war protest bit of it because it was about a guy going off and not knowing if he was going to come back from the war. Couldn't get too heavy, though, for the 6-year-olds.
And I don't know if I'm ever coming home.
I was terrified when I put out Last Train to Clarksville, but I loved the train idea. I was gambling, but I thought that the feel of it, the beat, would capture the, American public.
Don Kirshner's instincts were proved correct as the single rocketed up the charts and the Monkees unleashed a charm offensive on the American public.
Take the last train to Clarksville. Now I must hang up the phone. I can't hear you in this noisy railroad station. All alone, I'm feeling low.
We took the Monkees to New York. I believe we had their first record on a stage. And the audience went bananas. And at this point, the show hadn't even been on the air yet. Perhaps there was some promos on the air. And I thought, my goodness, this is going to be much bigger than I thought it was.
Take the last train to Clarksville.
But it wasn't just American teenagers who were taking a close interest in the Monkees phenomenon.
'Cause I've made your reservation. Don't be slow.
There was a lot of big industry players involved, but it was the first time that all of these industries, including the radio industry, had all kind of sort of joined forces in this concerted sort of assault.
Take the last train to Clarksville.
Before the Monkees were even on the television screen, they were crafting all sorts of things to go with the show so that when the show was on the air, instantly you would go to the store and there would be something for you to buy.
I didn't even see a lot of the merchandise until long after the show was off the air. Maybe they kept it from us, I don't know. We never got anything for that. And I could be bitter, but am I bitter? No.
Fellas, part of the contest rules. Every applicant must submit to exploitation and publicity, right? Right. Beautiful, baby.
The Monkees essentially signed a contract for a pilot. They signed away their name and likeness to be used on dolls and lunchboxes and everything else. And they were guaranteed a weekly salary of about $400 a week.
The Monkees had signed basic contracts for their TV show, unaware of the millions about to be raked in by Monkey Mania.
Wait! What? What is it?